Hey everybody, Bobby here at the Bourbon Battalion, looking to do a recon report tonight. So, recon report is where we go through and do reconnaissance on bottles that we've either had and haven't tasted in a while, or brand new stuff. Tonight we're going to do a recon report of something new, Magnolia, which is an SN Pikes Magnolia Wheated Bourbon out of Columbus. They source their whiskey from Lawrenceburg, Indiana, and then finish it themselves before they put it into the barrel. This particular one here is their wheated bourbon expression. It's a 51% corn, 45% wheat, and a 4% malted barley. It's 3.5 years in the barrel. And we're going to go in and see what we think of this. What's it taste like? What's it smell like? We're going to revisit it with a second pour, give it the due diligence. These people spend time making and a product that we can go out and try, so we should give them the time to think that the first, second, and third sip does not identify any whiskey or bourbon that you're going to try. So having said that, let's get to it. So these guys are out of Columbus, Ohio area, over by Gahanna. And Ed is the owner. And I did their SN Pikes bottled and bond rye. And it was delicious. I have since got another bottle of it. And to be honest with you, I enjoy it. I've shared it with some friends. And that's what it's all about, right? Finding good spirits that we like and sharing it with friends. So let's go to the eyes. What do we see when we look at it? Well, to me, I'm not seeing a big age statement. It definitely puts me more in the mind of like an anodized brass. I see more of like an anodized brass look to it. Looks a little young. I'm not seeing this really dark, rich, but that's what I would normally see in a big, rich bourbon. Maybe a really, a number 4 char with, a 4-year and beyond, you're going to see that darker. But let's face it, your first 4 years, 0 to 4, is where you're going to get the majority of your color from your barrel anyway. So I'm not disappointed with it. I mean, it's a wheater. It's what I would expect to see. I am surprised with the viscosity. I'm looking at the viscosity of it, and my legs are not turning into shrapnel. They're not breaking up and dissipating into a bunch of spots. I've got what looks to be a pretty good coater. What I mean by that is you get the legs going down, and if they stay steady and they make it all the way down, depending on how fast they fall, how thick they are, it tells you a little bit more about the viscosity of it. So how is it going to be coating? The oilier, the nuttier, and you kind of get nutty from wheat, and you want that mouthfeel to go through. So so far, I'm not upset with the eyes at all. The nose, a little floral. There is some floral there. There's definitely some corn there. There's no doubt about it. That is a bourbon. But you're getting some of that weird stuff that you get that really like maybe like a peanut husk. And if you're a cigar smoker, this kind of reminds me of maybe like a something from Drew Estate. You get that kind of like that acidy Drew Estate kind of flavored wrapper type of deal. Maybe if you flavored a Connecticut leaf. It's light. It's light and crisp, not dark and rich. Very, very light maple. I'm pulling out like a light maple syrup. I'm even getting like this weird, like cowtail caramel. If you don't know what a cowtail is, it's like is a candy. So yeah, the nose smells great. Really good. Pretty happy with the nose. All right, full frontal assault. Let's go into it. Cheers. That was downright pleasant. Yeah, that's pretty good. It definitely coats. The viscosity on the eyes did not lie. I feel a broad coating. I feel like some fresh grease on a hot pan that doesn't go streaking. It just coats and smooths out. It's definitely sweet in the front. Great coating. You do get some mouth tingles to it. So you have a little bit of that malted barley making a presence in there. And you know, the nose hasn't changed a ton on the palate. I still get that weird Drew Estate, that weird tobacco-y Drew Estate remnants of an you know, like an acid or some type of that would have some kind of flavoring to the wrapper, but not like a Maduro. That's a nice, smooth drinker. You could find yourself just sitting around with some friends. Quite honestly, I could throw a sea salt caramel Ghirardelli, and it would pair with this amazing. That sea salt with the sweetness coating of the nuttiness and the tobacco leaf all rolled up into the one. Sea salt caramel would be delicious with this. That coating gives it, you know, that viscosity gives you a really good finishing coat. You know, a little chirpy in the beginning, and I mean like a little, you know, you get that weird mouth tingles, but it's the first pour, right? And your palate's just acclimating. Do not ever take your first pour and your first drink as your resounding board that you're going to echo back to yourself and say, hey, that's what it should be. Take your time, right? A lot of things get better with age. And I mean that, and they're opening up and they're expressing, right? You know, a lot of times you go through and you decant a whiskey, or you go through and you decant a wine, right? You swirl it, you try to get it opened up. You want to do that. You might pour it deep. You might even do like a weird blend if you have like really bad wine. So always take your time and realize the most significant thing about your review of what you think it's going to be is getting to the second pour to find out what they were trying to make. So now, having said that, it's really good. It's got a nice coating finish. It's really sweet. I think it could have done another year in the barrel, and it would have been a home run, like a straight home run. You get a little thin. It's a little thin, but definitely pleasant. It's definitely a pleasant drinker. I would have no problem sharing this with friends, and being confident in the idea that if they have a weeder palate, they'll like it. All right, got a little bit left in here. We're going to save that for the back blast, see what it becomes. Throw some stuff around here and talk about it. So far what we've seen is that we have the eyes are leaning somewhere towards like an anodized brass. Viscosity on the legs were really good to give us a coating. We went to the nose. I definitely picked up floral notes. A Connecticut leaf wrapper that was maybe made by Drew Estate, because I'm not saying everything Drew Estate has that flavor taste, but Drew Estate is a very unique, different cigar, and they have some really, really good stuff. And, you know, light maple. There's light maple. And there's definitely, you know, this really nice light caramel, you know, like a cowtail. Not like this big rich one, but like just a nice caramel note that's floating there. Full frontal assault hits the palate. Sweet, definitely like corn sweet. You definitely have that corn forward sweet that first hits you. It kind of expresses and opens up. It gives you some mouth feels on your very first one, but coats. That viscosity tells you if you're going to have a medium to short or medium to long finish. And this is definitely a medium to long finish. You wouldn't have to turn around and take another drink right away because you have some flavors going on for a while because it's coating. And if you do the due diligence of taking the time to taste what's actually going down the back part of your tongue, it's pretty pleasant. Pretty pleasant. On the palate, I was pulling, some sweet, a little fruity, some peanut husk. It was definitely tingly on the first pour. Some cigar / tobacco. Somewhere in that cigar tobacco notes. I couldn't pinpoint it exactly. But when I think about the cigars, right? I'm a cigar guy. I was pulling like a really nice cigar on like your first 2 or 3 good puffs. And it's just, it's really enjoyable. After a few 4 or 5 puffs, it's going to get a little hot on your tongue and get oily. And that's when you throw this on it. That hot, smoky on your tongue with a nice coating, oily, high viscosity pairing works perfect. I would have no problem pairing this with a Maduro. It's on the light side, and that's probably because of the age statement, but it's not because of the alcohol used. It is really, really a good drinker. So it's time for the second pour. I let my palate adjust a little bit. I've given some time to rest. So now we can see what I believe, and this is my personal opinion, I believe you get to the point of tasting what the master distillers and the people that have invested their time, heart, and money into this find and say, that's it, when you go to the second pour. So my palate is fully acclimated. My senses are aware. My mind's aware. I've identified what I think it is. I've identified what it tastes like, what it smells like. So now I have my eyes, my nose, my mouth, and my brain all communicating. So the every part of my CPU is firing. Now it might not be firing as fast as it could, but hey, they're at least communicating. So put that right there. Okay, second pour. We'll start with a little bit of nose in it. Good Lord. If you're listening with headphones, I am so sorry I just whistled. That is... So originally, I don't know that I ever picked up fruit forward. That's fruit forward. That is a fresh cut apple. And I'm going to say a Golden Delicious maybe. I have apple like crazy. Straight apple. I don't even know if I can get away from the apple. It's so apple dominant. And I know for a fact I never had fruit forward notes on the first pour. This is why the second pour is so important. If you go through and you ever look at something, you should always do your due diligence. If you're going to buy something, look at the master distiller's notes and say, what is it that they're saying that they smell and flavor, all that stuff. And think like, okay. So you want to have an idea of that, but don't take their word for it. Do your own words. But at least you have an idea of what they're doing. You might find that was the notes they got when it got to the point that this is what they wanted it to be, which is typically a second pour. Pour that stuff again. That is so fruity. That's crazy fruity. Which is weird because I don't usually have a big fruit wheat nose. Usually on the wheats, you're pulling that like nutty sweetness, tobacco-y kind of stuff. Usually when I think fruit forward, I usually think rye. But that literally smells like just freaking a golden delicious apple that just got peeled off the tree. That's beautiful. All right, to the palate. Man. Still got that great coating. It's very sweet when it first comes in. I'm leaning more towards like and it might just be because the apple has my nose like just on craziness, but I feel like I'm pulling some kind of weird like a McDonald's apple pie. You know that you get that pie crust mixed in with the apple filling and it's hot. So not like super rich, but there's like this weird apple pie going on with this. I'm still getting like this weird twinge between light maple. I'm still fruit forward. Don't get me wrong, I'm fruit forward. There's corn makes its presence, and you know, for me, in a typical note that I'm feeling like I have some like maple caramel somewhere in there, somewhere between a light maple syrup and a caramel, maybe a light caramel, blah blah blah, somewhere in that wheelhouse. Really enjoyable. Actually, this is incredibly dangerous because it's really an easy drinker. It's an easy, fruity drinker. I would have no problem sitting down with someone that maybe doesn't have the most experienced palate and they're wanting to jump into the market and say, hey, you know what? I really would like something. I kind of like it sweet. I don't want it bitter. I don't want to have this big Kentucky hug that like is warm and all that stuff. Pfft, this is it. This is right there. If you're looking for that, Magnolia Wheated Bourbon is probably what you should go with. Man, there's so much fruit on that. That's crazy. Yeah, that's just turned into a really, really smooth wheated bourbon. And surprisingly enough, I think one of the things that's a little bit different, with it being a 3.5 year, which makes it that little thin and all that stuff, on the second pour, if you're looking for a drinker, I think it might play into your wheelhouse. You know, the older you get that kind of chest feels after a while. Not so much heat, but definitely, you know, the older it gets, the more you think of like molasses. A little bit thicker, a little bit richer. And those things are good. But if you're drinking after a while, it might get to your stomach. You're not really, ugh. That was really good with my first half of my cigar. But now that I'm on to my second, that's rough. You know what? This would be a player. This is a player because you don't have that really big, thick, rich gut. I still, having said that, I still think this another, you know, year would have made this a contender with about any weeder I've had. But man, you know, I mean, you're getting good stuff and being finished right. Sometimes you got to come to market early, and I get it, but this is really good. And now I'm at that point where I could drink the rest of that bottle. It has turned into that nice, easy drinker. And a lot of people, you know, has asked, what's the big craze about the weeders? Weeders are drinkers, right? They're light, they're smooth, they're sweet, they're neat. They give you this like coating feel, this nutty feel. You're gonna pull like that nuttiness out of it, some sweetness. Welcome to wheat. That's what wheat does. So we went through what's it look like, what's it smell like, what's it taste like, what's it finish like. Repoured another glass after a delay, came back to it, rediscovered it. What is it now? The about face or the second pour, I believe, is your distiller, master distiller's impression. It seems to, for me, always line up with that. So I'm not disappointed with this on any level. This is actually a really good drinker. So let's go to the back blast. The back blast is what we always take the little bit of our first drink and set it down and really do nothing more than just let it open up. Because this is what it's going to be if it's on my decanters, on my bar, right? And I decant everything all the time. So wow, does that just open up to like cherries? That's going to be like a really fruit-forward cherry, mid-range cherry apple blend. But right now it's kind of like cherry with a cherry maple nut cake. How about that? It smells like a cherry maple nut cake. And if you've ever been in the military, you've had that in your MREs. That's what that smells like. A cherry maple nut cake. That's so funny. If you want a really good, easy drinking, smooth wheated bourbon that doesn't have a big, rich complexion that's going to get to your stomach after time, and you're like, hey, I want to get something that's a wheater. I want to put it on my bar, so when someone comes in, I can show them what a wheater is, and if they're new, they're going to enjoy it and that stuff. That right there should be on your bar, decanted. You want it decanted because it turns into something amazing when it's decanted. And it's good because it's good in the reasons that someone else might find it, less complex, right? It's 3.5 years. Most of your color and all that stuff based on your char is going to happen in the first 0 to 4 years anyway. So when you're looking at that, the difference is that when you get one that's a heavy char and you get that big richness, and it does give you that big, bold feeling, that can also get queasy. And you got to remember, for those of us that have been doing it for a while, we can handle that queasy. Just like someone smoking a cigar. Hey, I'm good with a double Maduro Churchill. But you're not going to have someone just introducing themselves to the cigar world. Here's a Churchill double Maduro. They're probably going to throw up on your deck. So if you're putting something that's really good on your bar and you want them to be like, wow, that's really good, I want to go out and buy it, as a really good introduction into the wheated bourbon world, man, this is it. This is a killer. This is a home run. You're going to take someone that is trying to figure out how to come into the world, and this is it. That has turned into like just a really, really good, smooth, sweet caramel maple goodness. Oh, highly recommend Magnolia. You may not be overly impressed in your first sip, maybe even your second. Do your first, do your second, do your chew, do your fourth, do your fifth, which should only be about, let's face it, you can do all those things in like 1.5 ounces, maybe 2 if you're a big drinker. Then let your palate settle, revisit it in a second pour, out of the park. This is out of the park. I will put this on the bar. It will be decanted as my wheater. You can bet on that. I have some people coming this week that are trying to get introduced into the bourbon world. One of them is a lady, and this will bring her in. This is that sales guy that never loses. He gets the first sale, gets them in, and then he ships them off, and just keeps bringing first ones in. Absolutely love it. Ed, you did a great job with this. Your expression with your master distiller, this has been wonderful. So finishing thoughts, I believe this to be a really good entry-level wheated bourbon that gets better with the second pour. First pour is good. Second pour is amazing when you're trying to introduce someone into the wheated bourbon world or the bourbon world in general, and you help them to understand the difference between the wheats, the rye, and everything else that goes along with that. So having said that, I give Magnolia wheated bourbon. I will buy again, and I will decant it on my bar. And if you know my slogan here, it's pretty simple. Choosing to serve is a sacred choice. That is, choosing to serve and sign on the dotted line to give your life, your thoughts, your times to serve other people, and choosing to have someone come in your bar and enjoy your stuff is sacred as well. So, having said that, Magnolia wheated bourbon, go get it. It's a great introduction into the bourbon world. No one will be upset with it. You'll think it's really great. Do a second pour. And from the Bourbon Battalion, take care of those that take care of you. Make sure you appreciate those that are in your life. Until the next time, I'll talk to you again.